Welcome back to Country Boys Tackle Box. You ever wondered how many species we have down here in Florida? Florida's got so many species of fish, it's unreal. But here's 7 species that are inshore fish that are in Florida pretty much year round. Sometimes some of the species are better fished in cooler water, some of them are better fished in warmer water, but they're here year round. So the first fish we want to start with is the pompano. Now the pompano is a fish that lives along the surf lines. They'll be back in the bay. Sometimes you run into them there in the bay, but a lot of people fish for them in the inlets and passes and along the beach, you know. And they're speedy fighters, man. They run hard and taste good, boy. They're some of the best eating there is. One of the best eating fish there is. So pompano, yeah, they're sought after fish. A lot of people fish for them on the beach. So during the winter time, especially now when that water's cold like this, they come into the shore, and on the incoming tide they come through the inlets and go back into the bays, feed on shrimp and crabs and stuff like that. So they're a highly sought after species because of the table fare that they provide. That's the first one. Now the second species is pretty common fish. They're here year round, and they're pretty much fished for a lot, pretty much everywhere, and they're caught pretty much everywhere. It's spotted trout, speckled trout. That's a pretty common fish, man. I tell you, we catch a lot of them here in Florida. People target them, you know, because they're pretty good eating. They're probably not as good as a pompano, but they're up there. They're pretty good table fare, you know. And you can find them around the passes on the inside, around the passes, you know. Once the pass comes in and it opens up into the grass flats out there, that's where you find the speckled trout. Mainly is on the grass flats and estuaries, you know. Sometimes around the bridges, around the estuaries, around the passes. You know, they pretty much feed on just about anything that they can catch and kill. They'll eat greenbacks, pinfish, shrimp, crabs, all different types of stuff. That's about all I can think of that they eat, but they eat a lot of different stuff, man. Their diet's very varied. So, you know, I believe that they're one of the most sought after fish in Florida. They catch a lot of them. But I have too. I've caught a lot of them. I put my clients on a lot of them because they're just pretty eager biters, man. They bite pretty good. They're not too picky about what they eat. They'll eat anything just about. Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to talk about redfish. I might be red drum to some of you. They're basically found in the same places the sea trout are, around the passes, some coastal waters, you know, sometimes along the beach. But they're mostly found in the passes and around in the grass flats, out in the coastal bays, you know, feeder creeks and anything coming near the flats, you know. They around oyster bars, they're all over. They move constantly, so you know you just got to keep working to find them. And they pretty much a crustacean eater. They like to eat shrimp and crabs. They root down in the grass and get crabs out. I've seen them one time on the Pine Island Sound out there on the flat. The tide was just starting to come in, and I seen this shrimp start jumping on top of the water. He was jumping across the top of the water like that, and bloom, got hit. I knew it was redfish right then, so I got me a spoon out and I started casting spoons. And I started catching a few reds, see, so you got to pay attention to what's happening out there on the flats, how the bait's reacting, because a lot of times when the bait's jumping and they're nervous, there's fish around, there's predator fish around. So the redfish is very popular all along the Gulf Coast states and up and down the Atlantic side too. Florida has the Atlantic side, man, to catch some really monster redfish, especially in the passes, sometimes along the beach. But back in the passes, in the passes on the incoming and the outgoing, man, them redfish in there 30, 40 inches long. Put up a massive fight when you hook one. Yeah. A redfish is pretty much recognized by his copper color and the spots. This black spots around his tail, near his tail, or all over the body. I've caught them with multiple spots. You know, I mean, sometimes people catch them, they look like leopards. They got so many spots, but that's kind of rare. But I've caught them with 3, 4, 5, 6 spots on them. But that's kind of rare too. But most of the time they got one spot right near the tail, and that's it mostly. But yeah, the coastal waters is where they hang out, up in the estuaries and along the bays and up under mangrove islands. You know, when the tide comes up, I start looking for them around the mangrove islands, around the holes. Get a little bit of holes around the mangrove islands. I think that the tides and the weather wears out these holes over time, and that's where they get up under the mangrove trees at, along them little edges, and they're pretty good to catch right along them edges. Yeah. So that brings me to the snook, common snook. It's one of our most popular fish down here, boy. Everybody fishes for them things. They are probably one of the hardest fighting fish you'll catch. They jump, they run, they're strong, and they're smart. Catching a trophy snook is not an easy task most of the time. But the way I catch them is usually just trolling in the river with bomber lures. Bomber makes some really excellent lures for catching them snook with. The biggest snook I ever caught, I caught off a bomber lure. It's 44 inches long. Yeah, it's a pretty good size one. But snook's a very popular fish around here. It's got a line right down the middle of it. You'll see in the pictures what a snook. He has a line all the way down from his head to his tail. Racing stripes, what they call it. Alright, another species that's more common during the cooler months would be the sheephead. The sheephead they have stripes on their vertical stripes like this, and that earned them the name the convict fish. So they look like it's just got vertical stripes like that, and they have teeth like a human almost, or sheep, and they eat barnacles, crustaceans like crabs and shrimp. That's pretty much all they eat, crustaceans. But you can catch them. I like to use a little small jig head, like an 1/8 ounce jig head with a 1/0 hook on it, and I put shrimp on it, and live shrimp. Sometimes even dead shrimp work. They're not that picky. You catch them around bridge pilings, oyster bars, piers, boat docks, and a lot of different places like that. But they're almost always found near structure of some sort that's got a lot of barnacles and stuff and oysters on it, because that's what they feed off of. They eat the oysters too, right off. They'll eat oysters and they crust the shells and eat the inside of it. So you catch them on oysters if you can get it and stay on your hook. But they're pretty common fish for the winter fishing. A lot of people fish for them during the winter time. They like cold water. During the summer, you don't see as many. They're around year round, but in the summer, you see less and less of them. And then they go somewhere, I don't know, offshore or wherever they go. But during the winter time, they come in massive schools, man. They're everywhere then. So you gotta look for them around the bridges and stuff. So another species is the triple tail. Now, triple tail is a very unique looking fish. They call it a triple tail because their fins are arranged in a way where it looks like they have 3 tails, and they're dark looking, mottled dark brown, have some black and dark green on them, Yeah, and they look like they got three tails, and they hang around buoy markers and crab trap floats and flotsam and weed lines. Uh, yeah, they could be anywhere. I mean, you can bump into them anywhere. It's like that. They're generally caught with they use like a cork like this, and drop a shrimp down about 3 foot, where it gives you a little bit of weight where you can cast it over to them, and just let it drift by the float like that, buoy or channel marker post or whatever they're hanging on, weed line even, and that shrimp. And that's how they catch them, mostly with shrimp. So that's another species to look for. And we got a jack crevel, Crevalle jack. They're not the biggest food fare table. They're not the best table fare there is in the world, but they are strong fighters. They'll pull like a freight train. You get one 15-20 pounds, you got a battle on your hands. So they're found all over the place, in the inlets, in the bays, and just everywhere in the harbors. They can show up anywhere, man. They generally, you'll see them. They'll start busting bait everywhere. Pow, pow, poo, pow, pow. And just throw a jig in the middle of them, and you'll hook up. So, well, the last species of fish I'm going to talk about is the tarpon. The tarpon is a very well-known big game fish. Boca Grande Pass in southwest Florida is probably the most famous place that they catch them at, but they catch them all over the state. On the Atlantic side also. Yeah, they grow to be big. The world record's right at 300 pounds. And that was caught at Boca Grande, as a matter of fact. During the warm months, around May, maybe late May, depending on the weather, sometimes even as early as April if it gets hot enough, they come into the Boca Grande Pass in gigantic schools. They bring the big sharks with them. They got hammerheads in there 14 foot long, bull sharks 12 foot long. I've seen them. I've seen them just attack the tarpon, bite them in half with one bite when you got one hooked up. Yeah, that's a sight. They got a hammerhead out there they called Old Hitler. I think he's still there, but a couple of dudes went out there and hooked up to a big shark and trying to get a 15-minute of fame type thing, And I don't know if that fish is still alive or not. But anyways, the tarpon can be found all over, everywhere out there. And when they start coming in, they come in on the deeper flats. The flats were, say, 6, 7, 8 foot deep. That's right along the edge of a channel. And on the deeper flats down on the southern end of Pine Island Sound, there's areas down there that are deeper. I've caught them down there. They are fantastic fighting fish, man. Nothing really compares to them, because a fish that big and they take to the air, man, they can jump 10, 12 feet out of the air. I mean, it's just spectacular. But they're not much for the table. They just for sport fishing. People like catching them, and they're a heck of a fish, man. If you ever catch one, you want to catch another one. I guarantee you that. But well, that'll do it. Those are the 7 species of fish I'm highlighting right now. So there's more. We'll get to it, all of them eventually. But these are about the 7 most common fish I'd fish for when I go fishing on the flats. And I just love catching snook and redfish and even sea trout. So we'll get to that. I hope you had some value out of this video. If you did, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We need it for the algorithm, helps us out. So thanks for watching.